Okay? In number 1, you need to multiply. Reminder, big concept is this idea of FOIL, first, outer, inner, last. If we were to use the concept of FOIL, what would be the first terms? What's x times x?
X squared.
X squared. X times 7 for the outer terms.
7x.
Negative 5 times x for the inner terms.
Negative 5x.
And negative 5 times 7 for the last terms in each parentheses. Negative 35. All right, and then the only other thing that you do is you look to combine like terms. Can any of those things be combined together? 7x and negative 5x can be combined together. So when we're done, we get x squared plus 2x minus 35. Does that ring a bell? You were probably starting to do this almost exactly a year ago. Okay, and some of you may even have done it in junior high. Okay, all right, so going down to number 4. Okay, see if you can do the x minus 1 times x plus 4. Give you a second to try it and see what you come up with. Angel, what'd you get?
I got x squared plus 3x minus 4.
Agree or disagree? Agree. Okay, you should get the 4x minus the 1x to combine to be the 3x. So, big thing is, little mistakes people make is they do x times x is 2x. Make sure you understand x times x is x squared. Okay, and then after that, it just comes down to your like terms. All right, so number 7. Like the one that I talked about right here, where eventually we're going to do an r plus 4 quantity squared, you have an x minus 4 quantity squared. The biggest reminder is you do not simply distribute the square. This 2 means write the parentheses twice. X minus 4 is written once for you. You write it one more time, and then you FOIL. So now we do x times x is x squared. X times negative 4 is negative 4x. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x. Negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. If we combine everything together, what do we get? I heard x squared plus 16, so he's saying negative 4x and negative 4x cancel out. What'd you get, Charlie?
X squared minus 8x plus 16.
Minus 8x plus 16, negative 4 and negative 4 makes negative 8. Okay? Now, if you had simply distributed the square, you would have gotten x squared plus 16, and you would not have gotten that negative 8x. So that's why it's so important that you understand that 2 means write it twice. Okay, that's the big, big, big concept. Okay? Questions there? All right? So, continuing down. Okay? Now we get into factoring. Factoring is basically going the other direction. We're going to group things into parentheses. Okay, the very first thing that you always do when you look for factoring is taking out what we call the GCF, the greatest common factor. Okay, that simply means what's the biggest number that goes into 6 and 18? 6. Is there a variable in both pieces? How many? All right, you always take the smallest exponent, 2 versus 1. 1's the smallest exponent, so we're going to take 1v out of both. Okay? Now, since factoring is the opposite of multiplying through like foiling is, essentially you are dividing by the GCF. Okay? So when we go to write our parentheses, it's what's left over after taking out the 6v. So, what is 6v squared divided by 6v? The 6's cancel. What's v squared divided by v? What is it?
Isn't it just v squared?
So, if you have 2 v's, as in v squared, and you take one away, you're left with 2. It should just be v. If you recall from chapter 8 last year, 2 minus 1 is 1. You just subtract your exponents. Okay? Now we have our minus sign. So what's 18 divided by 6? What's v divided by v? No v. They just cancel out. Okay, so just like the 6's canceled out before, now the v's cancel out. Okay, all right, let's look at number 13. Okay, what number goes into 3 and 9? 3. Is there a variable in both parts? Yes. What is it? So we're going to take out a 3x. Now remember, you're dividing. So the biggest mistake people make is they think that there's nothing left at the beginning. But since you're dividing, what's 3x divided by 3x? What's anything divided by itself? 1. Okay, and then what's 9 divided by 3? And x squared divided by x? X. All right, so here's your check. If you can distribute the 3x back and get what you started with, then you did it right. If you can't, then you must have done something wrong with your factoring. Okay, so GCF, you always want to look for GCF first, and that's why we're talking about that first. Questions? Do we need to do another one? All right, so then, next, we do the idea of factoring, which is the concept of unfoiling. Okay, so if you think back to like the very first example, okay, if I were to talk about factoring the x squared plus 2x minus 35, notice you have two parentheses, an x in the beginning of both. Our focus is to find two numbers that multiply to be the last number and add to be the middle number. So negative 5 times 7 is negative 35, and then negative 5 plus 7 is a positive 2, which is the middle number. Okay? So when we come down here, we need to understand our goal is we're going to have two parentheses, an x and an x, and we want to find two numbers that multiply to be 12, that add to be 7. 4 and 3. Does it matter if I put the 4 first or the 3 first? No, it does not matter, because the community property multiplication says order does not matter. Okay? This was chapter 9 last year in algebra, factoring. Okay, ring a couple bells, reminders. Okay? All right. So number 19. Oh, didn't leave you much room. Oh, is your number 19 on the back? Your number 19 is on the back. Okay. So our goal, we want to find two numbers that multiply to be negative 54, that add to be negative 3. Your parentheses always start with the variables s and s, x and x, b and b, whatever the situation is. Because s times s is s squared, the very beginning. So can anybody come up with two numbers that multiply to be negative 54 and add to be negative 3?
Negative 9 and 6.
What do you guys think about negative 9 times 6?
Oh, yeah.
Negative 9 times 6 is negative 54. Negative 9 plus 6 is a negative 3. It works. Okay? All right? All right? Continuing. Last part. The difference of two squares. Okay? For these, number 1. Okay? When they say the difference of two squared, they're saying that, hey, you have x squared and you have another number squared equaling 25. Okay? What number squared is 25? 5. So this is essentially x squared minus 5 squared. Difference meaning subtraction. Okay? And then squares, x squared, 5 squared. Okay? Anytime you have two terms with a minus sign, you should be thinking about this concept. And basically what it is saying is that all you do is take the positive and the negative of the square root. Okay? So an example that they have up here is x squared minus 25, x minus 5, x plus 5. Okay? And then this one ends up being the exact same one. That's a bad example, I guess. X minus 5, x plus 5. Okay, so we'll do number 26. Okay? So, first thing you want to think of, what number squared is 36? 6. So it simply becomes x plus a 6, x minus a 6.
Doesn't matter like if it's plus or minus.
The order of it does not matter, okay? And again, if we were to FOIL this out, the reason why it works, x times x is x squared, x times negative 6 is negative 6x, 6 times x is positive 6x, and then 6 times negative 6 is negative 36. What happens when you combine a negative 6x with a positive 6x? They cancel out, and that's why there's only two terms, the first and the last. Okay, and that's why you need one of each sign so that they cancel out. Okay? Questions? All right, the objective.